So welcome everyone. My name is Amit Anthony Alex, and I'll be the host for today's podcast from Path Builder, an organization that aims to empower young people to take action towards their purpose. These podcasts called Path Breaking because we are looking to give you real and practical insights on building a career in the social impact sector. Today's podcast, we will be talking to Sruthi and Aashi, both of whom are my ex-colleagues from my Upaya days, as well as good friends. I will ask them to introduce themselves. Sruthi, do you want to go first?
Sure, Alex. Hi, everyone. My name is Sruthi Shanmugham, and I'm currently a senior analyst at Upaya Social Ventures, which is an impact investment organization focused on improving livelihood opportunities for people in rural communities of India. So I've been working in this firm for over 2 years now. And prior to this, I worked at a company called Vista Analytics, which worked with private equity funds and boutique investment banks. And I'm really glad to be here. Yeah.
Thanks, Sruthi. Aashi, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, so thanks, Alex. So I'm Aashi Garg, been working with Upaya for 2 years now. And before that, I was working with Deutsche Bank and State Street Global Advisors, and then graduated from Christ in 2019 with econ, math and stats background. So yeah, and thanks for having me here, Alex.
Great, thanks, Aashi. So let me start by asking Sruthi this question, and Aashi, you can also answer after that, is why, you started off your career, Upaya was one of your second job, and it's been about 2.5 years, as you said, but why a job in impact investing?
Right. So I think when I was in college, I wasn't really aware of a space called impact investing. This is something I chanced upon during my time at Vista, which I had taken up as a project. But why impact investing was when I was doing this project, I found the opportunity to really use my financial or the skills that I've learned so far in Vista to better use, where I could get better job satisfaction as well. And more than anything, Upaya specifically is very close to my heart, like the mandate that we work for, which is improving the livelihood opportunities for rural people. So I think that was a phase in my life when I really wanted to also make that shift, and commercial finance spaces were not working out for me. So yeah, I think that's what pushed me to impact investing.
That's interesting. What about you, Aashi?
So something similar to Shruti as well. I also got to know about, I knew about ESG and sustainable finance, say in college a bit, but then eventually during my time at Deutsche Bank and State Street Global Advisors, I really worked in 2 different settings, which any person can work in a commercial finance space. But I just knew that my skills and all the experience that I had could be used in a better setting, like impact investing, and working with, say, companies and entrepreneurs as well who are so mission driven was something that I felt that resonated with me more than the commercial finance space did. So it was really something that where I was looking at an intersection of personally what I believed in and what I really wanted to do, and everything that I did had a purpose. So that, and then professionally, I wanted to really build these skills. And I think 2 years into working in impact investing, I think it was the right choice to move into the space and really understand what I can do as a professional as well.
Thanks. No, that's fascinating. So both of you joined. So Aashi, especially, sorry, to you, given that you sort of did your job search slightly later than Shruti. You were interested in impact investing. What's the kind of role that people can look at as a fresher in impact investing, according to you?
So essentially, the roles that really anyone can look at is like, investment analyst or a fellow analyst that you can work for, right? For fun, like some funds like Paya or like any other space, right? So any of the roles that you see around, like say portfolio and investment, we're closely working with the founders and, helping them, supporting them in their, growth journey. Those are the kind of roles that essentially are there, and the kind of skills that one needs to sort of have for those is a mix of like finance skills also, and a good amount of soft skills as well around communication as well, oral and written communication, and a lot of networking skills as well. So these are like the kind of essential roles that you can see around, like portfolio investment analyst, or a fellow analyst, where you could convert into a full-time profession, like full-time, if you can convert into like a full-time job after like say 1 or 2 years of working with the fund.
Got it. So I think this podcast is specifically aimed at young people who are interested in, in impact investing and building a career in impact investing. And both of you started as analysts. I think what will be fascinating for the listener is, what was your expectations when you joined Upaya? Your first role for both of you as analysts in impact investing. You would have had certain expectations, and then once you, let's say, got into the role 3 months, 6 months down, you realize what is reality. As a viewer, to a listener, can you paint a picture? Aashi, do you want to go first on this?
Yeah, so I think when I joined in and now the kind of work that I'm doing, I feel the expectation was essentially that things, it would be more, it would be, like relatively like, okay, investments and portfolio, right? I mean, you're only essentially working, like when you're thinking about it, you might be thinking that you're working only on, say, technical bit a lot, right? But just on, technical things like financial modeling, working on a lot of just say, Excel and all of this. But more than a desk job, it's more going out there, and it's a very front-facing role where you are representing the organization as well. You're representing the companies that you work with, right? And the entrepreneurs that you're talking with. So a lot of it is related to, at least now that I think about it, it's a mix of a desk job, and it's also being on the field a lot and being very versatile and resilient and being very quick in terms of acting also, and learning cross-functionally. Like, I mean, you do a lot, like your depth and breadth of experience is a lot in these kind of roles, because when you're on the field, you're working, you're actually assimilating all that information and coming back and literally putting that in number. And it's a lot of it's one profile that now that I'm thinking, it's something that's a lot like consulting and advisory role that you learn. Like, it's not just working on something and leaving. You're actually doing a lot of consulting and advisory also in a capacity where you're working as an analyst.
Got it. Understood. What about you, Sruthi? You worked in sort of a very different role, and you had certain expectations while,
Right.
And so tell me about your experience.
Yeah, like I think I completely resonate with what Aashi said, but just adding a bit of color to that also. What I've in general in the past 2.5 years understood is that the impact investment space in itself is very nascent. So, it's the companies out there do have, like Aashi said, like a go-getter culture or a startup culture. And people who are essentially joining these places would need to be, essentially a go-getter or very good with your communication skills, and need to be able to multitask and handle multiple stakeholders at the same time. What I actually expected coming in was, I came from a very commercial finance background. So we had set processes, targets. I was incentivized very much as well. And shifting to impact investment space, it was a completely different culture. One, I moved from a large organization to like a lean organization, and two, the culture within the space was itself very different. But I think it has really groomed me to be the person I have and really honed my communication skills, the way I really go out and present myself as well. It's really helped me build myself all around and not just a particular skill, I would say.
Got it. So now, just building on from what you said, Shruti, so what does a typical day look for you from a work point of view as a senior analyst or as an analyst?
Right. So I largely work currently on the investment pipeline and portfolio side. So typically on a daily basis, I'm talking to at least 2 to 3 entrepreneurs on their business models and assessing if they fit with our organization's mandate. And then also engaging with our current partner companies, helping them and supporting them in any way we can with certain collaterals or not in building their businesses. Over and above that, any other cross-functional work that the team would require, also going on field and traveling a lot and visiting a lot of entrepreneurs, farmers, and people from the marginal communities. Yeah, that is what a typical day looks like.
Got it. And Aashi, just, I think as an analyst, your day would be also similar. Can you paint a picture in terms of one, like, the field visit part, like you were talking about, it's a mix of desk and field. Like what does it involve as an analyst, being on the field, assessing an organization, right? Because even when you're a student, you learn to look at financial models, financial statements, but the field visit is something that you never learn as a student, right? So tell me, like, what does a day look like when you're doing a field visit, analyzing or understanding a company?
Correct. So yeah, so I think in the field when you're there, it's a mix of meeting your job holders, essentially, like your target. The farmers or the people belonging to the marginal communities, right? And being able to sort of strike that conversation, being able to get their confidence, and then being able to have conversations with them is one thing. Second is obviously observing a lot and asking a lot of questions, and the right kind of questions, and making sure that you are able to build that rapport also with the entrepreneurs, being able to understand them, understand the business, also meeting different stakeholders when you can, and being a lot on the road as well, because you visit a lot of rural parts of the country. So that's one thing that's there. And then taking a lot of notes and observing and writing down your assessments along with the facts that you are taking from the field. So it's sort of a mix of that. So it's two ways. Like, one, you have to have a different kind of skill set when you're talking to, say, the job holders. Mm-hmm. And then if you're talking to, like, say, the entrepreneurs or the team, so being very I think one thing that's needed when you're actually on the field is just being able to, put yourself out there and then talk. Mm-hmm. And make conversations and build that rapport and communicate also with, say, different people, because you meet a lot of people and need to have that sort of sense of how you want to strike that conversation and keep it going as well.
Got it. And Aashi, just building on that as well, right? As an analyst, you look at companies from different sectors. While we were when I was at Upaya with you as well, we've looked at everything from waste management to agriculture. And as an analyst, when you're new, when your experience and knowledge is so limited, how do you prepare yourself? especially from a field visit point of view. Let's say you are going to visit a company that is making shoes, right? For example, and you have very little knowledge about it. So as an analyst, how do you prepare yourself?
So I think it's a mix. I think you have to do your research before you're stepping onto the field, and it builds on with the experience. So when you are new into the system, I remember my first few field visits were first two field visits specifically were a lot of just observing, right? And seeing how, because you're always accompanied by someone who is much more experienced from the firm, right? So who's also there. So you observe a lot, and then you see that how they are doing it, what kind of questions they ask, what kind of things that you should be ideally looking out for, right? And then initially you do your own research about the company, about just, if you want to learn around the impact on the communities that you're working with, then you understand and you research around, say, okay, what's there. So I remember the first visit that we did, I already had some idea about like how the system actually works in that state, right? So for benefiting the community, so you sort of try to understand, and then you do your research, prep your questions, and then you come onto the field. Now once you're done with, like, say, once you're through 2-3 field visits, you have a better handle of how do you want to do that, right? So once you're through, then you know how you want to keep it, how you want to go about it as well. You have a sense of, like, so you've spoken to a lot of companies as well, you've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs as well, and then there is knowledge sharing within the organization also, right? So you pick up on those things and you sort of build that memory, and then you build on it, and from your own experience, then you can ask those questions, prep yourself for the field visit, and see how it's going to be.
Got it. No, I think that's very useful. Just going ahead, Shruti, when you look back, and then take this as, you talking to somebody who's interested in getting into the impact investment space, what would be some of the key skills, that they could start honing while they are in college, while they are preparing to apply for, let's say, an analyst role, according to you?
Yeah. I think first and foremost is inclination. I don't think one should be like really pivoting to the impact investment space if they're not strongly feeling towards it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the obvious. Moving forward, I think impact investing, you are meeting, like you mentioned, various businesses from various sectors on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
So that sense of a strong business acumen, which can be built, good logical reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
better financial and financial and analytical skills as well. And I think we've touched upon already a lot on the communication also, effective communication. So I think if I were to maybe like step into this field right now, those were the skills I would be willing to hone.
Mm-hmm.
As I like more progress in this role, or would want to. Yeah.
Got it. Aashi, do you want to add anything on to that? Because Shruti did say quite a few things.
Yeah, no, I think Shruti covered it well. I don't think I have anything specific to add, but just around, say, a lot of like stakeholder management is something that you need to understand in this. Because when you work as an analyst, you have to be very dynamic. Sometimes there might be, and especially because given the structures in the fund, right? I mean, the teams are leaner, unless it's a very big fund, right? So you should be able to, like, what's that saying? It's called jack of all trades, kind of this thing. That you should be like, you should be able, like, if they tell you that, okay, can you do this? You should sort of be able to do it or take first stab at it. Like, one example is just, around videography or something like taking photographs and making reports. So those are the things that you really need to sort of be good at, like be a go-getter in a sense that you need to have a lot of skills more than just what's given in the job description.
Job description.
But Alex, if I were to like just give a candid advice to someone, to myself 2 years ago, I would just say, just ask questions. Like you're not really expected to know as a fresher everything, but what you really should be willing to do is learn more and keep asking questions if you do not understand. Yeah.
Got it.
I think that's what really worked out for me.
Got it. So for me, the asking question part comes to an extent once you're in the role, right? So I think a lot of people out there want to get into impact investing. I want to ask you, like, if there are a few hacks or advice that you would give to young people who are applying for jobs in impact investing. It could be anything from a skill point of view to how they go about looking for a job. If there's any advice or hacks that you can give. Aashi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think I've spoken to actually quite a few people reaching out and then asking that, they would like to learn about this space, what kind of job roles and everything. So one thing that at least I've understood after working in impact investing is that you should have some sense of how it's going to pan out for you in the next 5-6 years. I mean, have that long-term view also in terms of how a job in impact investing would play out for you in the future and what kind of career options you can have and what is sort of resonating with you. Like Shruti said, you wouldn't be in this sector if you don't have the inclination, right? So you have the inclination, but there are also different roles, right, that you can go for, or you can yourself be an social entrepreneur eventually, right? So having that sense is very important, and not doing it to get it to go from a place A to place B, right? In terms of just because this job profiles looks good on resume. More than that, it should be about in the long term, what is it that you want from your career, right? Or professionally, what are your goals? Then you should really put that in conjugation with this job that you will be taking up, because it's immense learning. Your learning is exponential. It's not linear. It's exponential, and you need to be really mindful when you make this decision to transition into the space.
Got it. Shruti, from your side.
Yeah, I think any hack to get into this space, I think it's about being at the right place at the right time. But to do that, you just have to put yourself out there and increase the probability of someone catching you. So like Aashi said, we do receive a lot of reach out on LinkedIn, people reaching out to us, asking us about jobs. So if one is really inclined towards a space, then maybe going out there and understanding the kind of organizations that are out there for their intent or inclination and so on, and really keeping a tap on them or following up with key people in that organizations itself for any key roles. I think, that should be a good hack.
Got it. I've got two more questions, and I know we're running out of time. One is quickly to just ask you both, what is your long-term goals? And Aashi, you were talking about, having clarity in terms of long-term professional goals when you're thinking about getting into impact investing. So just putting it out there for viewers to hear, what are both of your long-term goals? Shruti, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think in the beginning of this podcast, I mentioned I was Upaya's mandate, which is for rural communities, is something very close to me. So in general, I think I just cannot take injustice. So I think my purpose in life, I want to do something against that for India. So I'm just thinking about getting all these learnings, maybe, getting a higher degree, learning some experiences from other economies as well. And then bringing them back to India and maybe being a thought leader in a certain aspect, and maybe bringing in policies that could essentially bring in the change. But yeah, long-term goals.
No, that's fantastic, and I hope you be successful at it. What about you, Aashi?
So I think for me, I think one of the goals when I was in commercial space was being in impact investing. Now, after that, I've worked here. I kept asking myself, what's next? Like, where does this lead me to professionally, right? So recently, I've had this clarity, and I think I've started to sort of work towards it. That given that we work with so many businesses, right, and get so much exposure, eventually after I have enough experience, I would like to start something of my own, so become an entrepreneur, then see how I can create a very impactful business, like that's also catering to a mission. So yeah, I think that's sort of long-term goal I have. Before that, maybe pursue higher degree, but yeah, that sort of is there. But yeah, after like working, say, having like good 10-15 years of experience, I would like to start my own organization.
No, that's amazing, and I wish you the best as well. I'm going to ask one last question. I know we're really running short of time, but I'm going to put you both on the spot. My question is, you both got into impact investing because you wanted to make a difference. Do you feel you've made a difference or an impact? One of you can go first.
Shruti, would you want to go first or?
Sure. That's a loaded question, Alex.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. No, but I think what I've learned in the past 2 years is you really need to understand where you are in this entire process of impact, you yourself. There is certain things that you might work for that you will not be able to evidently see it, or not even within the next 2 to 3 years, but it's a ripple effect or a domino effect, you could say. So I think it's very important to understand where you stand in this process, and accepting that this is making a change. So I think that acceptance does make me believe that I've made impact. Yeah.
What about you, Aashi?
Yeah, I think like Shruti said, initially when I joined, it was like a lot of passion, like working with marginal communities as well. What I've realized is, and at least this is what has given me, I think, most satisfaction, is that when you're putting in the work and it's sort of being recognized, like say by the entrepreneurs are actually doing the most hard work, right, of working with the communities, right? So when they come and they say that, okay, this helped us, and you were there, and when they say that, you've been working with us and we really appreciate it, I think that's where it has, for me, like I have got a lot of satisfaction. And then when you strongly believe in a enterprise, and they are able to get the kind of capital that's needed for them to create that impact, I think that has really brought me satisfaction, and know that this is not going to how do I put it? Yeah, this is not going to like go in a place where impact's not going to be created. I'm sure that this is where impact is going to be created.
Yeah, no, both of you have fascinating answers, and I'm sure it's going to be insightful for anybody who's listening. And that's the end of our podcast. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our weekly job compilation that gives information on the job opportunities, specifically for social impact sector for freshers. Thank you and have a great day ahead.